Wendy Allen Belleville is in the house. She is this week's Fab After 40 Women's Health and Mindset Hub Woman of the Week. And I got to say, I've known Wendy since our college days. I met her one semester in UCLA, at UCLA, and we lost touch for many, many years. And Wendy reached out to me 2 decades later, and she thought it was me. I'm like, yeah, it's me. And we reconnected. It's when I moved back to Los Angeles. So thank you, Wendy.
Well, I want to say thank you for that intro, Ronnie. And it was actually a year before my college years because I was there the summer before my senior year of high school. Before my senior year of high school, and I met you, and you were like a big sister to me. And I had told my mom, I said, I want to stay in Sacramento. I don't want to go to college. And she sent me to UCLA to just get a bigger view of the world, and loved it. Met you, and so I'm really glad that we got to reconnect.
Yeah, we met that summer. We were such 80s girls. Oh my God, the way we dressed.
I know, the big hair, the whole thing.
And we had some stories, but we're not going to reveal them here.
Yes.
But you ended up going to UCLA, didn't you? Where did you go to college?
I went to Cal State University in
That's
Northridge.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah. Their radio TV film program, which is now cinema, television arts. But yes, I was, and then I ended up, as you know, with a very, very successful career in television.
All right. So let's start there. Wendy has worked on shows such as Wings and some other things. So how did you start? I mean, you graduated and you got an internship, didn't you? Or how did you get into radio, television, and into where you were?
Really interesting story. So when I was a junior, I actually befriended Eddie Murphy, which was just a funny story.
Why not?
Yes, why not? I was 21. One of his bodyguards lived in my apartment complex in Van Nuys, and he said, at the time, this was 1989, and Eddie Murphy was about as big as you can get. And he said, I work for Eddie Murphy. And he'd asked this bodyguard had asked me out on a date, and I said, no thanks. And he said, I work for Eddie Murphy, which sounded like, okay, you're crazy. Of course, you don't work for Eddie Murphy. He said, yes, I do. And I'll prove it. And so he gave me this address to come meet him that night. So what does a 21-year-old girl do in LA, but go at like 10 o'clock at night to some random address in downtown LA, which I did.
You went with someone, right?
I went with a couple of friends. Yes. And it turned out to be the set of Harlem Nights. So it was true. So we met Eddie, and he invited us on his bus, which is like the trailer, like the dressing room. And he was actually a lot of fun. And we went to the house and played him in a game of pool. I actually played him in a game of pool and beat him. Eddie was not very happy about that, but it was an interesting dynamic. And we got to, for several months, my friends and I just hung out with Eddie and his tribe, and it was a really fun group. And we got to talking, and one day we were visiting him at Paramount because he used to have a development deal there. And he said, and he knew that I was an RTVF major in college, and I was there with some shorts and flip flops and some top. And he says, do you want to work here? Meaning Paramount. And I said, yeah, like that would be cool. Like not knowing anything about what I would do. I wasn't qualified. I didn't have my degree. So he sent one of his bodyguards with me over to HR at Paramount and said, get her a job, tell them to hire her. So I walked over there, no resume, nothing. And the bodyguard says, Eddie Murphy said, give her a job. And so this is before cell phones or anything. So they said, give me your number and we'll call you. I didn't expect anything to come of it. About a couple of days later, they called and said, would you like to come in to meet with us on the guest? We have a role for a page in guest relations. What's a page? What's guest relations? I didn't know any of that. But I met with who became my boss, and I ended up being a page for 2 years. I worked really hard. I didn't rest on that laurel of knowing Eddie Murphy. And it was that was my entry into Paramount. And I was a page for the first 2 years. Like you said, I worked on Cheers, the Arsenio Hall show, Dear John, so many shows as a page. It was so much fun. And then I graduated from college. So that it wasn't an internship. I was actually a page, which pays sort of like an internship, but it's a great entry level role. And then I ended up working my first production role on Wings, the sitcom Wings. And I was a production assistant for 3 years. And then I was bumped up to a writer's assistant, which is, I can't even describe what it's like to be in a room.
Did you ask for the writing position? Like you saw an opening and you asked for it because you wanted to write, or did you just tap you?
Well, it's funny. They tapped me. One of the producers, a showrunner, said, hey, would you like to be considered? Would you like to be a writer's assistant? And I said, that looks really hard. Like, no, because I had some friends who were writers assistants, and you sit in a room with all the comedy writers and they're pitching a mile a minute. I mean, you can't imagine, they're speaking over each other, they're interrupting each other. Because I would sit in on some of the sessions, and my friends, I would see you would do it. And hey, read those 3 scenes back to us. And my friends would just read back the scenes like just verbatim. And I just thought, how do they capture all of that verbatim? And that just the pressure. And I said, no. But then I thought about it, and I thought this could be, just up level my game and go outside of my comfort zone. So I did do that. I worked towards it. And
how were you?
I ended up being very good at it. And it's nerve wracking. I mean, if you have a bunch of very important comedy writers pitching and you're the only one in that room who's capturing it, and back then it was old school, so I had to teach myself shorthand and all this stuff. And I would write with like 3 pens in one hand, and I had a color coding system and which pitch, and I ended up having a really good knack for that. And so, hey, Wendy, read back those 3 last scenes, and I would do it in the cadence of the actors and just to kind of get a feel. So that was really exciting. I did that for many years. Even after Wings ended its run, I was with Wings the last 6 years of its run. And then I stayed on with other shows to be a writer's assistant, sort of like being a court reporter in the room. And it really seeing comedy writers who normally are just the very sweetest, most incredible people, but inside of a writer's room, they just light up. I mean, they're just gregarious, they're on fire. That's the heart and soul of any television show is the writing staff. I mean, I'm always going to be partial to the writing staff. So that was an incredible experience, Ronnie. And I still pinch myself that like, I get paid for this. We go down to the set every day to the run throughs, and we'd have the rewrites, and it was just a really special time.
Yeah.
And then over the years, I was at Paramount a total of 18 years. Later on, eventually I'd gotten married and had a child, and I decided I wanted a more 9-to-5 type of role. So I went into more of the corporate realm of the studio, and that was really great. My child, my little baby was in the daycare center there at Paramount. So it was wonderful. And then eventually in 2007, relocated to Orange County. It was a little too farther south for me to stay at the studio. So that's when I switched into my second and current career, which is corporate comms, marketing, and public relations.
How do you think you being exactly that, be a writer's assistant, helps you now?
It helped me immensely, believe it or not, because a lot of people have asked me, it's a good question, how'd you go from television to, and I really focused a lot in my early career in healthcare marketing and PR and communications. How'd you go from that to this? Like, I don't understand the connection, but the storytelling of being a writer's assistant and being part of that, it's like being an assistant comedy writer. You have to be on your game. You have to understand, first of all, just writing in context and all of that. I mean, you're not only taking basically dictation of what the writers are pitching, but you're also typing it into a script. So you better be letter perfect, because if you have a typo, the actors, when they read it in the run through, are going to read your typo. So it taught me attention to detail. That's probably the biggest thing it taught me. It taught me deadlines. It taught me that you don't go home until the work is done, because when you're in the writing staff, you don't go home when the script is half finished. So you work 12, 14-hour days. I once worked on a pilot where we worked 20-hour days.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not kidding, 20-hour days from like 10 a.m. to 6 a.m. So it's just, it's grueling, but it's amazing. So it's just not everyone has a stomach for that.
Oh, yeah. But also the brain. And this is what I mean by this. You are a good listener. And so I'm sure that you had to be focused with 10 people talking at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I did. And it's funny you say that, because I was. And I also, you have to be intuitive, because there's, anywhere from 5 to 15 writers in a room. Not all of them have the same clout or level. And so you learn as the writer's assistant, okay, I'm hearing all of you pitching over each other, but I'm really listening to you 3 the most, because I know your pitch is probably going to go in. And you also have to learn to listen to the laughter of, this pitch got a lot of laughter. The second one didn't get as much, but that one's going to go in the script. And at least the way we did it back then, I kind of intuitively would put in and write down the one that I know they're going to want, because you would get a feel of the writer. Sometimes a joke's really funny, but it's at the expense of one of the actors. It's funny and it's a really funny thing, but we can't put that in the script. Or it's a really great pitch, but that's not really our brand for this show. So you learn what to ignore, but it's funny and it got the bigger laugh, what to put in. And when the writers say, read that back, these are Emmy-winning comedy writers. They don't want half-assed. They don't want someone who, I missed that. You guys were too fast. I've seen people get fired for that. I've seen people get fired on the spot for like zoning out and not capturing what they wrote, because once they pitch it, a lot of times they forget what they pitched. I never did that. I always captured it. And so it's like you have
never messed up, not once.
Not once.
Oh my
God.
God.
I mean, you have a little mini heart attacks on the inside. Oh my God. And people say, and a lot of times, and I would be writing it, I'd have a lot of the writers, because I taught myself shorthand, like traditional shorthand. And then I found there's a lot of words that they're saying, and I would make up symbols, shorthand symbols that aren't actual shorthand symbols, but worked for me. I still use it as my second language, my written language. And I would have a lot of writers looking over my shoulder, because you sit with them and, oh, what's that? And I'd be like, shh, like I have it all captured. I will lose it if you just shut up, let me get this down. So I was really good at that. And it's one of those roles where you sink or swim. You're either going to fly or you're going to drown. And I did a good job.
I can imagine that you now implement that, or it just comes to you naturally when you're listening to a potential client. You pick up stuff. You pick up not just body language, but what they're saying and their real needs, even if they don't know how to express it.
I do. Active listening, you have to really dig deep. And I'm hearing what you're saying, the client is saying to me, and I'm hearing what they're not saying, and I'm putting those pieces together, and I always reflect that back. So what I'm hearing you say is, XYZ, because I never want to assume, but here's what I'm thinking. And I try to do that thinking for them, because that's what they pay me to do, to help us think through this, so that we can up-level our game and whatever we're trying to accomplish. So I do active listening, in communications, you learn that listening is more important than speaking.
Oh yeah, you sound like a coach. You should be a life coach.
Don't have the time. That's your role.
Because people think in life coaching, somebody found this out yesterday. Well, what would you ask first? What do you want to talk about first? That depends on the client. That depends on what's up at that moment. And in a really good session, the client does most of the talking. Like I would say 80% if I had to give it a number. And we're just really good at pulling it out. And what you said, we call reflective thinking. So you said, and we kind of paraphrase it or just say back to them what they said. And I've gotten really good at, I don't even have to take more than one word notes, like for a whole thought that they put out. So yeah, it's really helpful in all realms. I want to take this from Paramount, and I love that. You went to Orange County. We're getting a little personal here. I remember when you moved, and this is really personal. So if you don't want to go there, let's not go there. But both you and I have gone through what many people do. We had one marriage and now we're in another marriage.
Yes.
And I remember you helping me a lot when I was going through the tail end of my first marriage, because I just like gave it my all. It's like, I'm going to give it one more try. And I remember you sharing with me, you going through your divorce. But I remember you telling me you went to Orange County because of the school system. I'm like, wow, that's great. But you knew that it wasn't where you wanted to be. Like if it was just Wendy, you wouldn't be there.
Right.
You wanted to be back in LA. So let's go through a little bit of that time in your life. How was making that decision? Like, this is a better school system, a better area for my kid. Let's move. How could you leave all that?
It was hard. It was hard, Ronnie. And it took my ex-husband 5 years to convince me to move. And I didn't want to, I'm an LA girl. I still am an LA girl, even though I've been in Orange County for 15 years. I'm an LA girl. I love LA. I just do. And there's such a paradigm shift between Los Angeles and Orange County, California. The schools are, it's a different kind of vibe down here. The schools, you can go to a public school and get an incredible education, the same that you would get at a private school in LA. And there's a lot of great schools in LA. So I'm not saying that at all. So I didn't really want to. He kind of wore me down after 5 years, and I relented. And, and I've made some incredible friends here in Orange County. So I don't regret that. Although I do regret leaving Paramount, because that was my home since I was 21 years old. And I literally grew up there my entire adult life. I spent so much of my formative adult years there, and I didn't want to leave it. And I fantasy sometimes, could I ever go back there? But it's something that was very difficult. And I think about it. And over the years, a couple of times a year, I would go back to the studio because I still have friends there to visit. And I would always say, just to remember who I am. Like, I'm an LA studio gal who now lives in Orange County, and I'm doing that whole Orange County thing. But it's just the diversity and just the culture is just so much more inclusive for me. That's been my experience compared to Orange County. So it's not, but again, I've met some incredible friends and had some great career opportunities here in Orange County. So I would never poo-poo that, and so it's been a nice welcome surprise. Am I going to stay in Orange County forever? Absolutely not. The child that we moved here for is now in college. He's in LA, ironically, going to Cal State Northridge. So he no longer even lives in Orange County. He's away in college. He's a freshman now. And so we have our second son, who we adopted through foster care, actually. He's been with us for almost 4 years. And so he's a junior in high school. So when he graduates, we'll be able to make that shift in about a year and a half. And my husband and I, my current husband, my forever husband, were able to just make a change and go and to, explore other counties. But definitely we're going to stay in California. I mean, I am ultimately a California gal.
Yeah, your mom's in Northern California, but see, you're a testament to what many women go through, many people, but many women go through, and especially the past 2 or 3 years where you had to reinvent yourself, pick up roots. What do I want now? Or you find, I'm finding many women just looking at what really fulfills me, what will fulfill me, and they're changing their direction. Yes. And just, there's been so much growth in the past 2 years, women in their 40s, 50s, and even 60s. I even have a lady I was working with who is turning 80, and she just decided to be something else. I'm like, you're still.
Oh, wow. Good for her.
But, uprooting is hard for women. Well, for men too, but it's hard to make that decision to just change your life and not have regrets, but to get into that mindset. And it took you 5 years to make that decision, to get into that mindset of, I'm changing now. I'm not too old. I'm far from old. And this is my new life.
That's right. That's right. And I was 39, 40 at that time or so. Yes, I was about 39 at that time. And so not, just kind of right in the middle there. And and once I embraced it, I was happy with that change. It's like, okay, I'm ready to change everything up. And I did. And I would never have had the career that I have now had I not made that shift. So I'm, everything happens for a reason.
And how did you just, okay, closing up shop at Paramount, now I'm going to open up my own agency? I mean, that takes a lot of guts.
Well, there was a lot of terrain in between that. So I left Paramount, and I was in the corporate space for a long time. My first job post Paramount was at South Coast Medical Center in Laguna Beach, and I was their marketing communications manager. And so I was in corporate roles and Marcom for many, many years. I just opened my agency last August. And so I've been, knock wood, it's been very successful. So I've been in that space for almost 15 years, supporting organizations, up-leveling their game, just helping them get the right message to the right people at the right time, really honing my skills, really jumped into it and found that was even more of a fit for me than even television, which I never thought I would want to do anything other than TV. So it opened whole new doors for me. And actually my tenure at Paramount really opened doors, because everybody, when I'd be in interviews, like, well, tell me about what that was like. They just wanted to hear about the TV shows I worked on and just all that glamour and all that, it's a lot of hard work to work in television. I mean, don't let the red carpets fool you. It's really hard work, and they earn
the background work is just killer.
It's grueling. It's grueling. And I was always a behind the scenes gal, and I prefer to be a behind the scenes gal. I don't usually do interviews and things like that, because I love to support on the back end. And that's what I did at Paramount. And that's what I do now. And so now, I took all of my years of experience, whether it's through the television industry or just through my corporate communications and marketing and just all of it. I wrapped it all up together and said, I have something to offer clients. And so founded and launched last August, Elevate and Connect. And, it's amazing. It's been, we have more clients than we can handle, knock wood. And so it's just really taken off.
Well,
And
what
it,
made you take that leap? I know I'm interrupting, but what made you take that leap?
I got to a point working for organizations that really just didn't fit my sort of vision of what I wanted out of life. And, and a lot of it had to do with what happened with the George Floyd and all that. Now, diversity and inclusion, that's nothing new. I keep telling people, George Floyd, that was caught on camera and that happened, and that was devastating, of course, but this happens all the time. This is not new. And as a Black woman, I experienced that my entire life. I just got to a point in my life where I said, you know what, I don't need to make a difference. I need to do something that really resonates. And I want to build a community that I want to be a part of, and that other people want to join me. And so although I had some really good experiences in the corporate world, I had some very bad ones too. And especially the higher I climbed, just as a Black woman, and not making this about race, but you're both invisible and conspicuous at the same time. And the higher you climb, people just don't want to see you there. And so I just thought, you know what, I told my husband, I said, I'm done. I'm going to put my own shingle up and just see if I can make a go of this. Years ago, I had a little agency and it did pretty well. And so I said, I know I can do this. I have the chops. I have the experience. I have connections. I'm doing this. Like, this is happening. Figure it out. So he fully supported me in that, though. He really supported me.
Yeah.
He saw that I was just not, thriving in just the last year, just so much. My father passed away from COVID. George Floyd, 2020 was a miserable year. And that's when I just decided to make the shift. I said, I'm gonna do that. So last August, we launched, and diversity and inclusion training is one of the offerings. Although we focus primarily on communications, corporate communications, PR and marketing, content marketing, social media, all of that.
How did you get your first clients, and how do people? Yeah, I guess that's it. I'm not a salesperson. How do you get your clients, and how did you get, especially the first clients, which is just a lot of word of mouth, and you ask
word of
people?
mouth, and it's so funny, and thankfully, and again, we haven't had to advertise yet. It's just been through connections and word of mouth, and people we knew, and people who've known our experience and what we can bring to the table and what we've done for them, and so it's been incredible. And
who's we? Your partner?
Yeah, yes. And so just working through all of that has been, like, pinch me. And one day, I remember there's one day where I booked 3 clients in one day. And I just thought, I told my husband, take me to lunch. I need a drink. Like, I need to decompress, because this is really happening. So it's been a really wonderful experience, and I don't take any of it for granted. I work really hard. I work harder probably than I ever have in my life, but it's building a new community. And so that's what really is important for me.
So when you said, okay, we're open now, did you already have clients, or did you just put it out there to all your connections?
No, we didn't have, it took within probably a week or two, we started getting clients. So it was pretty quick. And so we were kind of flying the plane as we were building it, because I think expected, I probably would have wanted more time to keep building the plane, so to speak, but then we started getting clients. So, it just really took off. So
I guess my question is, how did they know about you?
Word of mouth, and just letting people know. And yes, sending out an email and building a website and linking, and hey, we're open, if you have putting out feelers. We even got one through just a post we did in one of our social platforms, just a contact I know, and we got, an amazing account from that. So
I think
keep it going.
Reputation counts for a lot, because you were doing something different from corporate, and that was something different from TV, but man, they know Wendy. And that's so key and crucial, just to all women, all people. But I think that's really what helped you, from what I hear. We know Wendy, and whoever was referred by you, it's like, well, we know that person, so it's got to be good.
That's absolutely true. And I appreciate that. Thank you, Ronnie. And that's how we got him. Like the people, it's, one of our accounts is someone that I used to work for, and he knows me. He goes, I trust you with all the work. And so, and we've been, and that's still a client. And so, I pinch myself, I'm grateful, and I just roll up my sleeves and I work so hard, and I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. My whole family is behind me. So, just whatever, I'm 54 years old now. So if this is my last act in terms of a career, I want it to be a good one and one that really resonates with where I am in my life. And it has to be that whole connection with where I am in my life. And I don't want my career to just be a job. I want it to be part of who I am. And I brought up the George Floyd thing because I really, I really want to be part of a community and work with people who have the same values. I even started I founded a group on Facebook, Parents of Black Children, because having a Black son was so hard. It's always been hard. And first time he's going to get called the N-word, he was 11, same age as me. I mean, I was younger than that when it first happened to me, but just how all of this was happening at once. And we have, 4,500 people who are in that group, which just exploded. And that's only been over a year as well. So it's just been, I've been trying to find ways to channel my advocacy and my career in a way that just kind of fits who I am. And everyone has the opportunity that if you're so lucky to be able to start your own agency or, like you're an entrepreneur and doing some amazing things. If you can put your own voice and your own vision into something that's really important and really speaks to who you are, and everyone is so different, so their vision is going to be so different. If you have the opportunity to do that, I think you should. And my husband is, like I said, he's really supportive of that and said, go for it. I'm here and do what you need to do. Excuse me. So I'm grateful.
That's awesome. And I'm sorry, you, because you're also a boy's mom. You have
Yes.
3 boys right now, or
I have
just
2
right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because I thought you were getting another boy for some
Well, I
reason.
know our foster. So my first son is my biological son. So that's through my ex-husband, Christopher, and he's the one who's away at college. And then we, and I told my current husband, I said, it's always been on my life plan to have more children. And I want to go through foster care because there's so many kids up there who need a home. And I want an older child because they're so discarded, like people want little babies. So, we have Andrew, who we've had, he brought him into our home. He just turned 13. He was a little older than sort of what we were looking for.
And I must say, I must ask, I know this is personal. He's not Black.
No, he's Hispanic. He's Hispanic. And we didn't care about color. We wanted a boy because we figured Christopher was 16. Yeah. So we figured 2 boys and they'd share a bathroom. It'd just be easier. They'd have their own bedrooms, but they share a bathroom. Now I'm thinking, I'd love to have a girl. So we're still open for business, so to speak. But we've been on that foster care journey, and there's been some ups and downs. Andrew's been a dream. And unfortunately we've had some other kids that didn't work out, but we've given them a good home for as long as we had them, and it can be a devastating situation sometimes.
But I bet you they'll never forget you, even if the relationship didn't work out. Yeah, they're always gonna have a little memory of their time with you and your husband.
We try, and for the time that we had those other boys, we really just I think we help reset them.
God, you impact lives. Now I just got to share this, and then I want to ask you about diversity. I just have to share this. Yeah. I have about 7 Christmas cards. They're all postcards. No, they're pictures, I should say.
Yeah.
With your little boy. and this year you were a little late, but I'm like, I have watched your son grow from the Christmas photos. And we're kind of old school. We still send them. They've dwindled, haven't they? I used to line up Christmas cards. Now it's like 4.
Yes, they really dwindle. I mean, people just the last couple of years, people are just like, forget about it. We still do that. And a lot of people like to see is especially Christopher, who's now 6'4", 200 pounds, he's huge. Since he was 9, I started doing it when he was about 9. It's just he's way taller than me now. And so it's just been, we do it every year, and we used to do a big photo session. We didn't do the photo session last year because getting the boys there and smiling was just pulling teeth, and I'd almost have to low-key threaten them or bribe them, whatever worked better. So, it's just, I'll probably always do that. I mean, it's just I love to give it, whether or not we get the same amount back, and we get a good amount back, but it's just, that's just part of our holiday offering.
I just wanted to tell you that even if I don't thank you, I love that Christmas card. So I can imagine that all your contacts were like, oh, I got Wendy's card. Oh, and we have watched your son grow that way. Yes. So it's personal, and I love it. And please tell Christopher that, because I love that. So I introduced you to somebody else who I just found amazing. And I heard her on a podcast, and I connected with her. She connected with me right away. Her name is Kareth Foster. And I love that she was saying, and she used to be a writer for The View, and she used to be a writer and a producer for Imus. Mm-hmm. Because I looked at her, I'm like, whoa, she got hired for Imus. She's a Black woman.
Mhm.
She got hired for Imus right after he said nappy haired hoe.
Yep.
And I wanted to ask her about that. She totally shared. And she's an inclusivity writer and coach and speaker. You can see her on Fox News. She was a comedian. But now I introduced her, you two, and now you guys have gone off and you're already exploding because you came up with this idea. It's DEI. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Conversations and DEI, sort of the brand that we came up with. And so we're going to kick off our first of what we hope to be an ongoing series of just a casual, insightful, impactful discussion between two gals, kind of an insider's view. The first one is going to be about colorism and its impact on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Colorism is a not very well-known topic. And you probably know about it, but it's sort of the prejudice within the same community. So Black on Black prejudice, and I know it's in the Asian community, Hispanic community, it's all over.
Yep.
It's very prevalent, but it's usually people outside that community aren't very well aware of that. And so we're going to really explore topics about within colorism, lighter skinned Black women, men or women, but lighter skinned Blacks versus darker skin. There's light skin, brown skin, dark skin. Now, most non-Blacks look at us and just say, well, you're just a Black person. We don't see a difference.
No, sometimes we're not sure. I can be that open. I know I'm going to feel like, really? No, but it's true. And just like I'm Latina, my husband didn't know that when he first met me. I'm like, I'm so Latina. My parents are from South America. My grandparents are from Spain. I have American Indian, but not putting him down at all. But he realized like, oh yeah, I've seen Spanish people with blonde hair and they're lighter skinned. I just hadn't thought of it because he's here in Southern California and we both grew up in Florida and there's the dark skin, the dark skinned Mexican American. So he's like, oh yeah. So yeah, it's when you think that people look at all colors of Black women or people, that we realize the different, no, we don't realize it. We're like, well, you're just Black. No, often I have met women and I don't know if they're Latina or something else because they're lighter skinned. So no, we don't always just say, oh, they're Black. We don't know.
Absolutely. People don't know. And that's why it's such an exciting conversation, I think, because people don't know. And we're going to give that sort of bird's eye view, or not bird's eye, but that insider fly on the wall view of what do people talk about? Like, and we're going to get into this Tuesday. I don't want to spoil too much, but we really encourage people. It's going to be live. So we're going to go LinkedIn Live, Conversations in DEI. And it's a discussion about colorism. And we're really going to get deep. And we encourage the audience. We have over 150 people already registered to attend. It just really kind of exploded. And we want people to engage in the chat and just ask us questions that we'll try to get to during the conversation. And if not, we'll have a follow-up discussion. And we thank you, Ronnie, for kind of putting us together. That was, it was fun. And we have a lot in common, assumptions people make about us and all that. And so just looking at, again, another opportunity with just where we are in this world, just opening up those conversations. It's all about just, I think, being open and transparent and just sharing our stories. And I love to hear everyone's stories. I have my brother's, my sister-in-law is my brother, they're divorced now, but she's still my sister-in-law. She's Asian. And so I learn a lot about the Asian community, and my nephews are, Black and Asian. And so, I like to feel like, I really have a lot of insights, but there's so much I don't know about so many other communities that I would like to know. So I feel like these are opportunities for all of us to learn more. When we know more, we do better. And so that's where I'm coming from with this. And so really,
we do better. And I invite people and I'm being presumptuous here that you welcome them, but I know you. So, I invite us all you don't have to be a Black woman to attend this. I invite us all to talk, because I will never know what it's like to be a Black woman. I will never know the experience of Asian people, especially during COVID, but I can at least try to understand to the capacity that I can. Absolutely. I'm never going to say, well, I relate because I'm Latina. I relate to you being Black. Yes, we relate to being women, so we're minorities, and midlife, that's kind of an ageism thing, and that we are minorities because we're different ethnicities. But I will never truly understand 100% the experience you've had. So I invite us all to ask questions, be that open. Because I've asked you some really stupid questions because I feel comfortable enough to ask you. I call them stupid questions.
They're not stupid questions at all. But yeah, and I love the questions. I love to share. I love to share. And if I can be a window and someone who provides that understanding, that insight, I want to, because I ask other people questions. What's it like? And you know, and I try to not ask stupid questions either, but there's no stupid question. I really believe that, because that's how, if we're curious and we want to know, this, there's so much good in this world, but right now the people are just nasty. So I think the way we overcome that is just everyone take a beat and just kind of be there and see what we have more in common than we have differences, and ask questions and be open and honest and just connect. And that's through sharing. So that's what we're trying to do next Tuesday, and what I'm trying to do here.
And that's the other thing. I want to make 2 points and then I'll wrap this up. But the other thing is, I don't want people to think that you're coming from a place of victimhood, or whenever people open up the discussion of different races or ethnicities, it's not like you're going to go in there and complain about George Floyd. No,
Oh,
it's
not at all.
not from a place of victimhood at all.
At all. Not at all. And I've never done that at all. For me, it's about sharing my experience. And there have been some painful ones, you know, getting called the N-word is hard. And there's so many experiences that I won't go through here, but I'm proud to be who I am. I love who I am. And I have friends of all colors. I mean, I have a rainbow, and I'm proud of that. And so it's, I love to celebrate all of our differences. And so it's never about the place of victim. And I'm not even like that just in my personal life.
Yeah.
If I were like that, my mama would smack that out of me. Like we don't roll like that. And so, you know, I'm a very strong woman, and I try to be a very compassionate person and raise very compassionate, loving children. And I love, you know, that my second son is Hispanic, and I'm learning a lot about that culture. And you know, our family, because my current husband, my forever husband, is Caucasian. He's white. I'm Black. My son is Black. My other son is Hispanic. I love when our family walks down the street, people just look at us. Look at my rainbow family. I love it. Like my husband loves it. We all love it. You know, like
Yay.
we get all kinds of looks. Like bring it, bring the looks, because we are literally diversity personified. So very proud of my family.
Yay. And I'm proud of you. God, I'm so honored to know you for so many years. I'm just going to throw this in, which has nothing to do with nothing, with anything, I should say. But your husband's hot. So
Oh,
he's
well,
a
thank you. I
good
think
looking
so too.
man.
He is. He
He's a
is.
very
And
strapping man. And he was in the service too. So
was 23 years. He served honorably in the Army, and I was a
wow.
lucky gal. And thank you. I'll pass that along to him, and I'm sure he'll see this. And his heart is bigger than ever.
Yeah.
So he has the biggest heart. And so I got really lucky with that one.
And he got lucky to have you. Okay, since this is a health and mindset hub, we'll close out with this. Are you keeping up with your health, your exercise, your fitness? And if so, what's the biggest tip you have for women?
Drink lots of water. Walk, although lately the last couple of weeks I haven't been as good at that, but I think walking. And one thing that I do that clears my head that I love, I put on my headphones and I blast out to my 80s music, whether it's my elliptical or walking. And I sing, especially if I try to sing off key. I'm a decent singer, but I just belt it out. I don't care who hears it. And that really just gets the endorphins going. I feel great after I have like a session of Pat Benatar or Bon Jovi or whatever. I love it. And that really just my mind, body, and spirit. I just got a little kick in my step. So for me, that's what I do. I mean, I like to just sing to the 80s. That gets me going. That's
You're speaking my language.
whatever
Okay.
music moves you.
Absolutely. Okay. Say LinkedIn. I'm going to put it here in the hub where people can join. Will you have replays of the live?
We will. We're gonna go live, but we're definitely gonna put out the recording.
All right. So I'll put in all the links to your Facebook group here
Yes,
and the LinkedIn. And thank you so much, Wendy. Our Fab After 40 Women's Health and Mindset Hub Woman of the Week.
Thank
Yay.
you for this opportunity, Ronnie. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
And I'm always afraid to pause this thing that I'll lose it.